We live in a world where so many wear masks, not to deceive others, but to protect themselves from the wounds of their own hearts. Among the most misunderstood are those who seem distant, detached, and untouchable, the ones we call avoidant. To the outside world, they appear strong, self-sufficient, and even indifferent to love, as if intimacy is something unnecessary in their lives. But what if this appearance is only a disguise? What if beneath the surface there is a hidden story, a story of longing so deep it cannot be confessed aloud? Imagine a person who tells you they do not need closeness, yet their silence carries an ache that words cannot express. Imagine someone who pushes love away, yet secretly craves the warmth of being held, the comfort of being understood, the safety of being truly seen. This is the paradox of the avoidant. They want what they fear, and they fear what they want. Today we explore this contradiction, the secret craving for intimacy that lies behind their defenses. And as we journey into their inner world, we will uncover not only their struggle, but also a reflection of our own deepest human longing to be known and loved. The paradox of desire and fear within the avoidant is one of the most complex patterns of human psychology. On the surface, the avoidant appears distant, aloof, and firmly rooted in self-sufficiency, but beneath that exterior is a contradictory longing for closeness that cannot be extinguished. This paradox is born from the tension between the natural human need for connection and the equally powerful fear of losing the self in intimacy. For the avoidant, closeness is both the dream and the nightmare. They yearn for touch, for the gentle assurance of another's presence, for the comfort of knowing they are not alone, yet at the same time they fear that such closeness will lead to engulfment, control, or inevitable abandonment. The push and pull becomes a cycle, one that confuses both themselves and the people who try to love them. When an avoidant begins to feel the stirrings of intimacy, there is a magnetic pull toward the other person. Something within them whispers that connection is essential, that love is a nourishment they cannot live without. But as soon as this desire grows strong enough to feel real, their defenses begin to awaken. Their mind warns them of danger, painting closeness as a trap. Every step toward intimacy feels like a step into vulnerability, and vulnerability to them is indistinguishable from threat. This is where the paradox takes hold most strongly. They crave the warmth of closeness, but they cannot allow themselves to surrender to it without feeling like they are about to lose their independence, their identity, or their ability to remain in control. This paradox is not just intellectual, it is deeply felt in the body. An avoidant may notice their heart race when a partner tries to get closer, not out of excitement, but from a primal panic that intimacy will suffocate them. They may feel physical discomfort when someone lingers too long emotionally or expects openness. And yet, after creating distance, they often feel an ache, a hollow sense of absence, reminding them that their withdrawal comes at the cost of the closeness they secretly desire. The paradox is both torment and safety. Torment because they cannot resolve the inner split, and safety because distance shields them from the possibility of pain. At its core, this paradox is rooted in an early experience of love as unreliable, conditional, or overwhelming. When closeness was once associated with hurt, the adult avoidant learns to survive by telling themselves they do not need it. But that survival strategy cannot erase the truth of human nature, that we are all creatures of connection. Their desire never disappears. It only retreats into secrecy, emerging in fleeting moments of longing they rarely admit even to themselves. This inner battle between desire and fear defines their relationships, shaping how they love, how they pull back, and how they wrestle with the very intimacy they are wired to crave. The mask of self-sufficiency is one of the most visible features of the avoidance personality, yet it is also one of the most deceptive. On the surface, they present themselves as strong, independent, and unbothered by the emotional needs that so clearly define other people. They may even pride themselves on appearing unaffected, carrying themselves as if they are complete without anyone else. This exterior, however, is less a reflection of their true nature and more a carefully crafted defense against vulnerability. The mask tells the world, "I do not need you," when deep inside the opposite is true. Beneath this image of detachment lies a fragile heart that longs for the warmth of closeness, but has learned to suppress those impulses out of fear of rejection or loss. The self-sufficient persona becomes a shield. By convincing both themselves and others that intimacy is unnecessary, they protect themselves from the pain of disappointment. If they never admit their desire for love, they cannot be wounded when it is withdrawn or denied. This is why avoidants often excel at creating an aura of control. They may immerse themselves in work, hobbies, or intellectual pursuits, appearing perfectly content in their solitude. To others, they can seem enviably self-contained, but this perception conceals the hidden tension within them. What appears to be strength is, in truth, a way of managing the deep vulnerability they feel but refuse to show. This mask is also reinforced by the avoidant's need to maintain independence at all costs. To admit that they crave intimacy would feel like exposing a weakness, and weakness is something they have vowed never to display. As a result, they bury their longings beneath layers of stoicism and rationality. They may rationalize their distance by saying relationships are distracting, unnecessary, or even burdensome, when in reality these statements serve as a cover for the fear that true intimacy might unravel them. The more they repeat these narratives, the more convincing their mask becomes, both to others and to themselves. Yet, despite the strength of this self-sufficient facade, moments of truth inevitably emerge. Late at night, in moments of loneliness, or when touched unexpectedly by another's kindness, the cracks in the mask reveal themselves. The yearning they have tried so hard to suppress begins to surface, leaving them with an inner conflict that cannot easily be resolved. They want to reach for closeness, but the weight of their identity as self-reliant keeps them restrained. The mask is comfortable, familiar, and protective, but it is also isolating. It prevents them from receiving the very intimacy that might heal the wounds which led them to hide in the first place. The mask of self-sufficiency, then, is not simply a choice, but a survival mechanism. It allows the avoidant to navigate a world that once taught them closeness was dangerous. But this mask does not erase their need for intimacy. It only buries it deeper, making their longing more secretive, more hidden, and more difficult to bring into the light. The unconscious pull of connection is one of the most powerful forces within the avoidant, even though they spend much of their lives denying or resisting it. At the deepest level, every human being is wired for attachment, for the safety and nourishment that comes from being bonded to another. This truth cannot be erased by fear, no matter how many walls are built around the heart. For the avoidant, the unconscious need for connection often reveals itself in ways they cannot fully explain or control. They may find themselves inexplicably drawn to the presence of another, lingering in conversations longer than they intended, or experiencing a quiet yearning when they are left alone after pushing someone away. This pull is not always admitted openly, but it is present, alive, and unrelenting. The unconscious has its own intelligence, and it does not operate on the same logic that governs the avoidant's defenses. While the conscious mind works hard to rationalize distance and independence, the deeper self continues to whisper reminders that life without connection is incomplete. This is why the avoidant can feel both restless in closeness and empty in solitude. Neither state fully satisfies them because their conscious and unconscious needs are in conflict. The defenses that keep them safe also keep them isolated. While the unconscious pull toward intimacy reminds them of what they are missing. This tension creates a cycle of approaching and withdrawing, of longing for closeness while simultaneously sabotaging it. There are moments when the unconscious breaks through in more visible ways. An avoidant might feel a pang of jealousy when someone they care about turns their attention elsewhere, despite insisting they do not need that person. They may find themselves moved by a gesture of kindness or a word of affection that touches them deeper than they expected. These flashes reveal that beneath their resistance lies a hunger for connection that cannot be extinguished. The unconscious does not allow them to fully detach, no matter how convincing their mask of indifference may seem. This pull is also reflected in the kind of relationships avoidants seek, even if they do not recognize it. They are often drawn to partners who embody warmth, sensitivity, and emotional presence, qualities that balance the detachment they project. Though they may resist and even criticize these traits, the attraction is undeniable, for at some level they crave the very intimacy they claim to avoid. The unconscious is constantly guiding them toward situations that force them to confront their hidden longing, as if life itself is urging them to reconcile with the truth of their nature. The unconscious pull of connection is therefore both a source of hope and of struggle. It keeps the avoidant from fully shutting down, reminding them that they are human and that their defenses, no matter how strong, cannot silence the innate desire for intimacy. This force within them is evidence that their detachment is not their essence but a mask layered over a heart that still longs to be seen, touched, and loved. The inner wound and hidden shame within the avoidant are the roots from which their struggles with intimacy grow. At some point in their early life, closeness was not experienced as safe, but as overwhelming, inconsistent, or even painful. A caregiver may have been emotionally distant, unpredictable, or suffocating, leaving the child to conclude that love itself is unreliable. From these experiences, the avoidant learns to adapt by closing their heart, teaching themselves that it is better not to need than to risk being hurt. Yet the wound of that early deprivation does not vanish. It lingers as a hidden scar that shapes their adult relationships. When the avoidant grows older, they often carry this wound as a silent burden. They rarely speak of it because to acknowledge it would mean admitting that they were once helpless, vulnerable, and deeply affected by the failures of love. Instead, they cover it with distance and self-sufficiency. But beneath that surface lives an old grief, a memory of reaching out and not finding comfort, of wanting connection and being left unseen or misunderstood. This wound becomes the lens through which they interpret intimacy. Whenever someone gets close, they are reminded, consciously or not, of the risk of being hurt again. What others see as indifference is often a shield guarding this old pain. Alongside the wound grows a sense of hidden shame. The avoidant not only feels the absence of love but also begins to believe that there is something wrong with them for needing it in the first place. They may see dependency as weakness, vulnerability as dangerous, and desire for intimacy as embarrassing. Shame takes root because their most natural human longing to be loved and held was once unmet. Instead of blaming those who could not provide, they often internalize the failure and turn it against themselves. The shame says, "You should not need anyone. You are safer alone. Love will expose your weakness." This inner dialogue keeps them locked in a cycle of hiding, never fully revealing how much they actually crave closeness. In adult relationships, this hidden shame manifests in subtle ways. They may withdraw just when intimacy deepens, fearing that their partner will see the vulnerable self they have worked so hard to conceal. They may downplay their emotions, insist they are fine when they are not, or avoid moments that could reveal the depth of their longing. Yet paradoxically, their partners often sense the yearning beneath the surface. The avoidant's actions may communicate distance, but their unspoken signals betray a hunger for connection that shame will not allow them to express. The inner wound and hidden shame therefore act as both prison and protection. They shield the avoidant from repeating the hurts of the past, but they also prevent the healing that only genuine closeness can bring. The wound longs to be soothed, but shame convinces them that revealing it would lead only to more pain. This tension keeps them caught between craving intimacy and denying it, unable to reconcile their deepest need with the defenses they built to survive. The silent search for the feminine is a hidden current that runs through the life of the avoidant, even when they appear detached and indifferent to intimacy. Beneath their surface of independence lies a quiet magnetism drawing them toward women who embody warmth, openness, and emotional presence. This pull is not always conscious, but it reveals itself in the kinds of connections they are drawn to and in the subtle ways they linger around those who offer safety. The avoidant often seeks, though rarely admits, the presence of someone who can hold space for their guarded heart without demanding too much too quickly. The feminine presence represents something both deeply desired and deeply threatening, the possibility of being seen without the mask. The search is silent because the avoidant rarely announces or even fully acknowledges it. To admit such a longing would be to reveal a vulnerability they have worked hard to conceal. Instead, it plays out in unspoken gestures, stolen glances, small acts of attention, or a quiet pull toward a partner's nurturing energy. The feminine becomes a symbol of the emotional world the avoidant keeps at bay, yet secretly hopes to experience. Her warmth offers a contrast to their detachment. Her emotional depth invites them into waters they fear but cannot resist. Even when they withdraw, the memory of that presence continues to echo within them, reminding them of what they long for but cannot easily accept. This search often reveals itself in paradoxical behavior. An avoidant may feel drawn to a woman who expresses love openly, yet the very openness triggers their defenses. They may pursue connection only to retreat when it becomes too real, leaving the partner confused by the inconsistency. The silent search is not linear. It is a cycle of approach and withdrawal, attraction and fear. The avoidant wants to be near the warmth of the feminine, but also fears losing themselves in it. They are caught between craving the safety of being embraced and resisting the vulnerability that such closeness demands. The deeper reason behind this search lies in the avoidant's longing for healing. The feminine presence, whether in a romantic partner or in symbolic form, represents the nurturing force they were once deprived of. On an unconscious level, they seek to reconnect with the part of themselves that was denied the comfort of unconditional love. A woman who embodies emotional openness becomes a mirror of what their own soul craves: acceptance, tenderness, and the reassurance that closeness does not always end in pain. Even when they resist, this longing shapes their desires, their attractions, and the quiet ache that surfaces in their solitude. The silent search for the feminine is therefore not only about relationship with another, but also about reconciliation with themselves. In seeking the presence of a woman who can see beyond their defenses, the avoidant is also searching for the forgotten parts of their own humanity. It is a longing to return to wholeness through the embrace of intimacy, even if they struggle to admit it, even if they fear the very closeness they desire. The avoidant's struggle with intimacy is not a contradiction to be mocked or dismissed, but a human story of longing hidden beneath fear. Their silence, their withdrawal, and their mask of independence are not signs of emptiness, but of a heart that has learned to protect itself at any cost. Yet the very defenses they cling to are evidence of the depth of their desire. If they truly did not care, there would be no walls to build, no fear of losing themselves in love. The fortress around them exists precisely because intimacy matters so deeply. Within them lives the paradox of craving closeness while fearing its cost, of wanting to be held while pulling away from touch, of yearning for love yet distrusting it. This paradox is the wound and the secret. They cannot always admit it, even to themselves, because to acknowledge their need would risk the shame and pain they have carried since the beginning. Still, the truth cannot be silenced forever. It surfaces in their longing glances, in the ache of solitude, in the magnetic draw toward those who embody warmth and emotional safety. Their secret craving for intimacy reminds us of a greater truth. No human being can escape the call of connection. It is etched into the soul. We may resist it, deny it, or bury it under layers of pride, but it will always rise again, for it is the essence of what makes us human. The avoidant teaches us that even the most guarded hearts are not void of love, but are in search of it, silently, desperately, waiting for the safety that will allow them to finally surrender. In that surrender lies not weakness, but the possibility of wholeness.